Mark Hill Jordan Jeb Stuart Middle. In 1995, Dr. Bristow was the first black physician elected president of the American Medical Association in its 148-year history. Lonnie Bristow.
Melanie Smith, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Dr. Ben Carson became the chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins at the age of 32. He is best known for separating Siamese twins that were joined at the cranium in 1987.
Trevon Commodore, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Joycelyn Elders was the first African American to be appointed to the position of Surgeon General in 1993 by President Clinton. She spent many years teaching and practicing as a pediatric endocrinologist.
Terrell Franklin, Jeb Stuart Middle School. In 1988, Patricia Bath co-founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness. She was the first black woman to receive a medical patent in 1988 for advice using cataract surgery.
My name is Kyrell Long, Jeb Stuart Middle School. The Gullah African Americans who live in the low country region of the U.S. states of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina, in both coastal plain and the Sea Islands. They develop a Creole language, the Gullah language, and a culture rich in African influences which made them distinctive among African Americans.
Laridon Asmani, Jeb Stuart Middle School. The Black Panther Party was a revolutionary organization whose focus included demands for freedom, land, housing, employment, and education for African American people.
My name is Kalia Mitchell and I'm from Jeb Stuart Middle School. Marcus Garvey. Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a famous political leader from Jamaica who was a strong activist in black nationalism. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, also known as UNIA. He became an inspiration to later civil rights activists.
Jacquez Williams, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Rodney Lawrence Hurst Sr., a Jacksonville native, is the award-winning author of It Was Never About a Hot Dog and Coke and Unless We Tell It, It Never Gets Told. He chronicles the rich legacy of Jacksonville's black history. Hurst has dedicated his life to fighting injustices and documenting what it has meant and continues to mean to be living while black in the United States.
Janelle Morgan, Jeb Stuart Middle. Ella Josephine Baker was an African-American civil rights and human rights activist in the United States. She was a largely behind-the-scenes organizer whose career spanned more than 5 decades. She also mentored many emerging activists such as Diane Nash, Stokely Carmichael, Rosa Parks, and Bob Moses.
Aria Northrop, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Hattie McDaniel was the first African-American to win the Academy Award. She was also known for her role Mammy in Gone with the Wind.
Kamari Smith, Jeb Stuart Middle School. W.E.B. Du Bois was an African-American sociologist, historian, civil rights activist, Pan-Africanist, author, writer, and editor.
My name is Jashawn Austin Collins, Jeb Stuart Middle. Angela Davis was an African-American political activist, philosopher, and author. She gained prominence after she became the leader of the USA Communist Party in the 1960s.
Marcus Barner, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Malcolm X was a Muslim minister, African-American political activist, and inspirational public speaker. He struck controversy for being a human rights advocate who exposed the depth of crimes that had been committed against African-Americans. Adar Smith, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Harry Belafonte was the first African-American singer, songwriter, and producer in the 1960s. He was the first African-American TV producer. He was a civil rights movement supporter and a close friend of Martin Luther King Jr. He received the Gene Hosteen Humanitarian Award from Motion Picture Arts and Science in 2014.
Autumn Johns, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Misty Copeland is an American ballet dancer who in 2015 became the first African-American dancer in the American Ballet Theater in the company's 75-year history. Copeland became a strong advocate for diversifying and creating access for dancers with varied racial and economic backgrounds.
Brandon Artley, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Nathaniel Nat Glover, Jr. is formerly president of Edward Waters College in Jacksonville, Florida. Previously, he was the sheriff of Jacksonville since 1995 to 2003. After serving the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office since 1966, he was the first African American in Florida to be elected sheriff since the end of Reconstruction.
My name is Emma Boyer. I go to Jeb Stuart Middle School. Asa Philip Randolph was a leader in the civil rights movement and the American labor movement. He organized and led the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters. In 1963, he led the March in Washington, in which Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech.
Mackenzie Shevlin from Jeb Stuart Middle School. Mary Eliza Mahoney McD. On March 23, 1878, she was the first African-American woman to be admitted into the nurses training program at New England Hospital for Women and Children.
Savannah McDowell, Jeb Stuart Middle. Dr. Berry was the first black doctor on staff at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago. Dr. Berry worked tirelessly to make the hospital more inclusive for black physicians.
Destiny Fair from Jeb Stuart Middle School. Langston Hughes was a poet and novelist who captured the African American experience. He was also known as one of the founding fathers of the Harlem Renaissance.
Daphne Williams, Jeb Stuart Middle School. The Great March in Washington was held in Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963. The purpose of the march was to advocate in economic civil rights of African Americans. Standing there, Martin Luther King then said his historic speech.
Charles Roshan, Jeb Stuart Middle. Zora Hurston became the most successful and significant black woman writer for the half of the 20th century. Her career spanned more than 30 years. She published 4 novels, 2 books of folklore, an autobiography, numerous short stories, several essays, poems, and articles.
Amaya Pope from Jeb Stuart Middle School. Oprah Winfrey is an American media executive, actress, talk show host, television producer, and philanthropist. She is best known for her talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, which is the highest rated television program of its kind in history.
Rakayla Porter, Jeb Stuart. Dr. Easton published a comprehensive study of sickle cell anemia patients, which led to a nationwide test for newborns. She is the first African-American and female director of the AUD Department of Health and Human Services.
Jakiria Herring, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune was an educator, civil rights activist, best known for starting a private school for African-American girls in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is known today as Bethune-Cookman University.
Elisa Hudson, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Toni Morrison was an American novelist, essayist, book editor, and college professor. She was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1988 for her book Beloved.
Janai Dawson, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston was a prominent African-American lawyer and Dean of Howard University Law School and NAACP First Special Counsel or Litigational Director.
My name is Jasmine Bush and I go to Jeb Stuart Middle School. Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Elizabeth Brooks was an African-American poet, author, and teacher.
King Taylor, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Marcus Garvey was a strong political leader from Jamaica who was a strong advocate to black nationalism. He funded the Universal Negro Improvement Association. He became inspirational to later civil rights activities.
Kamora Claiborne, Jeb Stuart Middle School. Maya Angelou was a poet, singer, and civil rights activist.